Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Satarine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samavekta Bhakta Vrinda ki. So I'd like to thank you all for coming here today. And some of you may know, or maybe all of you know, today is one of the auspicious days on the Vaishnava calendar, and it's what is called Varahadeva. So it's kind of an interesting time because yesterday was Ekadasi, today is Varahadeva, and tomorrow is Nityananda Trayodasi. So it's a triple-headed event, if you like. You know, there's three major occasions in 3 consecutive days. Makes it a little bit confusing for the fasting though, because you don't fast today, you fast yesterday, because of the Ekadasi, and you fast again tomorrow. So it's interesting. So I just want to read. As you probably noticed, I'm not very good with singing, so there's a nice verse here. This is from the Dasavatar Stotra by Jayadeva Goswami. Jayadeva Goswami is, at least in parts of India, he's very well known. And Jayadeva Goswami was from memory, he lived about 800 years ago, I believe. But I might be wrong on that, but I think it was about 800 years ago. And so this is, as I said, called Dasavatar Stotra. And it's a very familiar concept, especially, you'll see in a lot of temples in India, they usually have these Dasavatar reliefs in the courtyards of the temples and different places. Some temples I've been to, they actually have, all the deities of the Dasavatar. So the Dasavatar refers to 10 prominent incarnations of the Lord, meaning, we've got, what's the first one is the fish, meaning Matsya, then Korma, then Varaha, Nrsimha, Vamanadev, Parashuram, Ramachandra, Balaram, and Krishna, and Buddha, Kalki. Yeah, so these 10 different personalities. But there's a particular verse I want to read from here. I said, Vasati Dashana Shikare Dharani Tava Lagna, Shashini Kalanka Kaleva Nimagna, Keshavadrita Shukara Rupa, Jai Jagadishari. And the translation, O Keshava, O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who have assumed the form of a boar, all glories to you. The earth which had become immersed in the Garbhodak ocean at the bottom of the universe sits fixed upon the tip of your tusk like a spot upon the moon. So this is describing just briefly touching on the pastime of the appearance of Lord Varaha. And I wanted to just explore this pastime a little bit with you all today. And I've got a few notes here that I've taken from the Bhagavatam, and if I can find them, it'll make life really easy. But oftentimes what happens is this thing doesn't cooperate. Krishna Chaitanya. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare. So in the third chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a chapter there which is called Krishna is the source of all incarnations. And in this chapter, it first starts off talking about the Purusha, from whom all the incarnations expand. And then Sutta Goswami goes on to list 22 different incarnations. He starts off with the 4 Chatus Kumar, the 4 Kumaras. These are young brahmachari boys. And then he goes through all the various incarnations and concludes with Krishna, Balaram, Buddha, then Kalki. And Kalki is the final incarnation of the Lord that comes at the end of Kali Yuga and destroys all the leaders and that, and he creates a bit of havoc. But actually, and listed amongst these 22 incarnations are plenary expansions, meaning full expansions of Krishna, partial expansions, and Yuga avatars, Guna avatars, Manus, etc. There's all different types of personalities mentioned there. But Varahadeva is described as the second incarnation. And it says, Dvitiyam tu bhavayasya rasatala gatam mahim udarashi sham upadata yagyesha sokaram vapu. The supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices except the incarnation of a boar, the second incarnation, and for the welfare of the earth, he lifted the earth from the nether regions of the universe. And we see that what had happened was the earth had become immersed in the Garbhodak ocean, and down the bottom of the ocean, it had actually fallen down to the bottom of the ocean. And the earth was pushed there by the activities of demons. They'd actually put the earth in that position. And what happened for Varahadeva to manifest was, you may be familiar with the story of Swayambhuva Manu. He had married a daughter of Daksha called Shatarupa. And after he was married, Lord Brahma arranged the marriage, etc. After he was married, then he went with folded prayers to his father Brahma, because Brahma is his father, and was basically glorifying Brahma, said my dear father, what service can I do? What will please you? And then Brahma said, I want you to populate the earth, to create progeny. And then so he agreed. He said, yes, you're my father, and I'll happily do that. And of course he said, but create progeny in the mood of devotional service, as a servant of the Lord. And so he agreed to do that. Then he said to Brahma, but maybe you can sort of come up with some idea or think of how to raise the earth from these nether regions down here in the bottom of the universe. And so then Brahma started to reflect upon that. Because Brahma is a very powerful personality, but it seemed that he was probably thinking that it was a little bit too much for him to do. To lift a whole planet is quite an achievement. I don't think any of us could do that. Anyhow, so while he's reflecting on that, then out from his nostril came this boar. You can imagine that, just sitting there thinking of something, a little boar comes out of your nose, it would be quite a surprise. And the boar it's described was about this big, like the end portion of the thumb. And then the boar flew up into the sky and very quickly expanded into this huge, gigantic form of a boar. And then Brahma was reflecting on that, and he was thinking, my gosh, what is this? He had no idea what it was. And you could well imagine, if you're just sitting there thinking about something and all of a sudden something comes out of your nose and just flies up into the air and expands, you're going to be thinking, what's going on here? And Brahma is an extremely intelligent person, but still he was a bit perplexed about what is going on here. So then, as he was thinking about that, then the Lord let out an almighty roar. Because it wasn't just him. He was there, and there was different sages like Atri and others. They were sort of discussing backwards and forwards who this might be and what's going on and all that sort of stuff. And then the Lord let out this great roar, and they were still a little bit perplexed. And then they were still discussing backwards and forwards. So he let out another roar, but with this roar, he enthused all the devotees, and they could actually understand, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then so they started off for prayers. And at that point, the Lord dove into the ocean to pick up the earth. Now, I'm following a little bit the description of the Bhagavatam. This is described in the 13th chapter of the 3rd canto, which is the book we read, the Srimad Bhagavatam we read in the mornings here at the temple. And so then, he picked up the earth and he fought Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha had put the earth down there, so he came to fight with Lord Boar, because the Lord was interfering with his plans, and the Lord very easily killed him. But then, see, this is a conversation that's happening between Vidura and Maitreya. And then Vidura was very intrigued. He said, "Oh, this is really interesting. Can you tell me more? How did these demons come about? Tell me more about the pastimes of Lord Boar." So then, what happened is Maitreya started to describe, because there is Kashyapa Muni, and he had actually Shatarupa is not the daughter of Daksha. Diti is the daughter of Daksha. Sorry, I'm getting my stories mixed up a bit here. Shatarupa is the daughter of. I'd have to check. I can't remember who Shatarupa's daughter of. Anyhow, there was a great sage called Kashyapa, and he was engaged in meditation. Then Swayambhuva Manu arranged daughters for him, wives for him. And one of those wives was Diti, another one was Aditi. He married, I think, 8 or 9 of Daksha's daughters. Anyhow, so one evening, Diti was just overwhelmed by desire to have a child. And so she approached her husband and told him, this is my desire. And he said, well, I'm able to fulfill all my activities just because I have such a qualified wife as you. But now is not a particularly auspicious time. So if you just wait a few moments, then I will fulfill your desire. And then she started to tug on his dhoti and saying, no, now. You're going to have to do it now, even though I understand it may not be the best time. And, because this is the time that Lord Shiva is out about with his hobgoblins and things like that. And so, but she was, driven by Cupid, it mentions in the Bhagavatam. So therefore, she just persisted. And Kashyapa Muni, understanding that, okay, this is my fate, I have to do this, he just offered obeisances to his fate and went ahead and did it. Engaged in procreation with his wife. And then she realized afterwards, okay, this wasn't the best thing to do. She went and approached Kashyapa and said, oh, my lord, I realized that I have done the wrong thing. And then Kashyapa basically, he was explaining, let me see if I can find what he explained to her. It was quite interesting. He said, because of your mind's being polluted, because of defilement of the particular time, because of your negligence of my directions, and because of your being apathetic to the demigods, everything was inauspicious. So, not a good, not foreboding well for the pregnancy. And then he said, basically he described that, the 2 children that were going to come were going to be great demons, very, very great demons. But, she had expressed some lamentation and penitence. She felt that I've done the wrong thing here. And he said, and then so Kashyapa explained to her, because of this mood, because of your repentant mood, then the grandson of one of your grandson or the son of one of your children will be the great devotee Prahlad. So we see that Kashyapa, he was actually able to see the future. He was a very, very great devotee. Anyhow, so to move on with the story, because it's quite an involved story. To move on with the story, we see that from Diti, then 2 great demons, and the pregnancy was so powerful. It said, and these personalities were in her womb, were so powerful that it caused the light of the sun and the moon to become diminished. Very, very powerful personalities, and. Then when they were born, Hiranyaksha, he was quite a fearsome looking creature. He had tusks and things like that, and Hiranyakashipu was also very, very fearful. And he became a very, very powerful personality. Hiranyaksha was always looking for someone to fight. He was, he's kind of like, I guess you get people like that in Australia also. They're always looking for a fight, and never satisfied. And anyhow, he used to just because he had a lot of mystic powers, and so he used to be flying around and smashing waves and all things like this, looking for someone to fight. And then, and of course, creating, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were creating havoc for all the saintly persons and things like that. And even we see, if we read in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, the types of things that Hiranyakashipu, he was just an avowed atheist. He was so opposed to Vishnu that anything that was favourable to Vishnu or favourable to the worship of Vishnu, he wanted to stop it. He wanted to, extinguish all the fire sacrifices. Stop the Brahmanas from doing their activities and all this sort of stuff because he was opposed to Vishnu. He was just an avowed atheist. Hiranyaksha was cast in the same mould, so also an avowed atheist. But then what happened was that he was just actually both creating havoc for the demigods, and so the demigods they approach as they do when they're in times of difficulty, they go to the shore of the Milk Ocean, and when they go to the shore of the Milk Ocean, then they offer prayers, and generally the prayers they offer are what is called Purusha Shukta. So these are, Shukta means like a prayer, and Purusha Shukta obviously means a prayer to the Purusha, or the Supreme Lord. Now, in Svetadvip, or the Milk Ocean, the particular form of the Lord that is present there is called Chiradakshaya Vishnu. So they offer prayers to Chiradakshaya Vishnu, and Chiradakshaya Vishnu is also the Lord in the heart. And so they were there offering prayers to Chiradakshaya Vishnu, and Chiradakshaya Vishnu revealed to them that he would send an incarnation, or he would come himself actually to deal with this matter. And so what happened then was that they went away, and there's many sort of sub-stories and sort of plots behind the scenes, all that sort of stuff going on here. But anyhow, so this Hiranyaksha was actually creating havoc, and he'd push the earth down into the lower regions, and at the same time, Manu was asked to populate the earth and things like that. So then he was asking Brahma to lift the earth. So at this point, that Varaha came from his nostril, but also at the same point, the Devatas were also praying, please help us to overcome the influence of these demons, etc., like that. So then, Varahadeva appears, and then he went down to lift the earth out of the depths of the water. And the thing is, like, in the ocean, because there's fish and there's plants and things like that, and the fish obviously they eat and they pass stool, and the plants they grow and they decay, and so all this sort of stuff goes down to the bottom of the ocean. I don't know if anyone has ever had a fish tank, but if you look in the fish tank, if you don't clean it, you wind up with all this stuff down the bottom, the remnants of the fish and the plants and stuff like that. And so the earth was down in that muck at the bottom of the ocean, and it describes in the Bhagavatam how the Lord, he took the form of a ball, because this was the right form to go into such a position and to remove the earth from that position. But then it also points out how, like some people might think, well, but how can God take the form of a boar or a pig? God is the supreme person. They have so many ideas of what God is like. But the fact of it is that in this material world, we have a particular form, and that form is limited. There's only so many things you can do with this form. Like maybe you're a good runner, but how fast can you run? 15 kilometers an hour, 20 kilometers an hour, maybe 25 kilometers an hour. I don't know how fast the fastest runners go. But you can't run 60 kilometers an hour, you can't run 100 kilometers an hour, you can't run 1,000 kilometers an hour. But for the Lord, this is it's very easy. He can easily travel very far in a very quick time, instantly. He can go from one side of the universe to the other. Or how strong are you? How much can you lift? Maybe you can lift 50 kgs, 100 kgs. Some people lift 150 kgs. But can you lift a planet? Can you lift a mountain? We see that Krishna, even as a baby, he lifted the Govardhan, the baby, like he was 7 years old. He lifted a hill, or actually a mountain, called Govardhan Mountain. He lifted on a little finger of his left hand and held it aloft for 7 days. So, just because his form may appear to be something different, or maybe appear to be limited from our perception, actually what's limited is our perception, not the Lord. Because the Lord, he may appear as a baby, even he may appear as a pig, even he may appear as a fish, or tortoise, or half man, half lion. He's always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also he's always fully capable, he's always fully able to perform all these different activities. So we see that no matter what form the Lord takes, he's not, like if we were in a pig body, we would function a particular way, we'd function like a pig. For those of you who have been to Brudge, you know what pigs do. But the Lord wasn't like that. Or the Lord's not like that. He's not influenced by the body because he's always the Lord in any circumstance. And so we see that even though he had taken on the form of a pig, still he was able to perform wonderful tasks, wonderful activities. And it describes how he took on this pig body. So because he was in a pig body, he smelt out where the earth was, because pigs are like that. They smell their food and they go pursuing the food based on smell. So by the fragrance of the earth, he was able to find it because it was actually buried in the refuse down the bottom of the ocean. And so he found the earth and he started to lift the earth up. And actually it's described how when he entered the ocean, he entered the ocean so forcefully that almost the ocean was split in two. So the ocean was offering prayers to Lord Bor, please don't split me in two, because the ocean was fearing for its very existence. And then so he dove down into the ocean and he picked up the earth and put it on his tusk. And then as he was rising up out of the ocean, Hiranyaksha appeared on the scene. And Hiranyaksha was very, very upset because, he'd put the earth down there and here comes this strange-looking creature and is trying to interfere with my plans. And so it describes how the Lord Bor, he placed the earth down on top of the water, so the earth was floating on the water, and then he engaged in a fight with Hiranyaksha. So first they were dueling each other with clubs. They had these big clubs, and this describes how the clubs were smashing against each other. There were sparks flying, and it was just quite a remarkable scene. And then it describes also how the fight was just going on, and Hiranyaksha was hitting the Lord, and the Lord was hitting Hiranyaksha, and there was blood coming out, and it was just going on and on and on. And the Devatas were starting to get really worried. They thought, oh no, this demon, he's even more powerful. They're worried that the demon was more powerful than Krishna. So we can see, actually, the Devatas are often described as what is called Kama Mishra Bhaktas, that their bhakti is mixed. Yeah? Whereas you look at someone like Prahlad Maharaj, for instance, his bhakti is never mixed. Even when Hiranyakashipu was fighting with Nrsimhadev, he never had any doubt in his mind that Nrsimhadev was going to defeat Hiranyakashipu, even though the fight went on for some time. But I don't know if you've ever witnessed a cat, when a cat catches a mouse, or we have cats living next door to us up home, and sometimes you'll see the cat. I remember one time we had a pile of rocks sitting in the front yard and there was a snake. You probably don't see snakes here very often, but there was a snake in the pile of rocks, and the cat was sitting on top of the pile of rocks, and every time the snake would stick its head out, the cat would grab it and just like bite it and just puncture its body with its teeth and let go of it again. And then it would sort of hit it with its paws and sort of hook its claws into stuff like that, and just damage its body just a little bit, and then let it go. And then the snake would go back into the... Because I sat there and watched this for a while and just was reflecting on how these cats, they play like that, and it's like the material nature playing with us and just leading us along a little bit. And so then the snake would go into the rocks, and when it felt it was safe, it would come back out again. And the cat was just sitting on top of the pile of rocks waiting for the snake to come out, and it would do the same thing. And he kept playing with it like that. And so Nrsimhadev was doing the same. He was just playing with Hiranyakashipu. So but when it came time, he killed him very quickly, very easily. Just bifurcated him with his nails. So in the same way, we see with Lord Varaha, he was fighting with Hiranyaksha, and the Devatas were very worried. They think, this is not looking good. We just thought he was going to come and kill him like that. But then, if you go back a little bit, in time, or not really time, but in the past time, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are the gatekeepers or one set of gatekeepers. There's actually 16 gatekeepers, but one set of gatekeepers, I think it's the third or fourth gate in, I can't remember, are Jai and Vijay. So at one point the 4 Kumaras, they were visiting the spiritual realm. This is described in chapter 14 of the 3rd canto. They were visiting the spiritual realm, and then these gatekeepers stopped them. And like, who are you? What are you doing here? You know? And they said, we've come to see Lord Vishnu. So, no. Little boys can't come in here to see Lord Vishnu. Of course, they're not little boys. They're like, greatly advanced, liberated souls. And so one of the Kumaras, it might have been Sanat Kumar, he became a little bit annoyed with this, and he decided, okay, you guys don't belong here in Vaikuntha because you don't recognize people who are capable of seeing Vishnu. And so then what happened was he cursed them, that because you don't belong here, you're going to take birth on the earth as demons. This is where you belong. You belong down in the material world as demons. And then just at that point, Vishnu decided to turn up. Of course, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's omniscient, so he knew what was going on. But of course, he just, enacted out the pastime, if you like, and he was inquiring what's going on. And they explained, these servants of yours, they're not qualified to be here in the spiritual world. They belong in the material world, so we've cursed them to go down. And so he was okay with that. And then Jai and Vijay were offering prayers to the Lord, and they said, but we don't want to leave, So we want to stay here. And then Vishnu said, look, you can take birth as devotees for 5 births, or you can take birth as demons for 3 births. Which one do you choose? And because they're devotees and they're residents of Vaikuntha, they didn't want to be away from Vaikuntha for too long, so they said, okay, we'll take birth as demons 3 times, so we can come back as quick as possible. And then, so there's another story behind this also, because Lord Vishnu wanted to have a fight, and so in Vaikuntha it's all his devotees. So who's he going to fight with? There's no demons there, So this pastime was arranged or was playing out just to fulfill the desire of Lord Vishnu. Just like there's another pastime that's described in the Das Avatar Stotra when it says Kurma Sharira. This pastime of Lord Kurma, when the Lord appeared as Kurma. So the story goes that he had an itch. He wanted to scratch the itch on his back, but he couldn't reach it. Yeah? So, it's like when you get that itch up between your shoulder blades, you just can't quite reach it, And so what he did was he took the form of Lord Boar, of Lord Tortoise, and arranged this whole pastime of the churning of the ocean of milk. And Mandara mountain was then put on his back, and Vasuki was used as the rope to churn it. And so this mountain Mandara was put on his back exactly at the point where he had an itch, so he could scratch his itch. So we see that sometimes Krishna arranges these amazing pastimes just to fulfill a simple desire that he has, either to scratch an itch or to have a fight, because it's just like the Lord's he sometimes he manifests a warrior nature, and so with this warrior nature, well, what's he going to do in Vaikuntha? He's going to fight with all these adoring servants, because there's very much a mood of awe and reverence there. So there's no scope of anyone getting into an argument with the Lord and having a fight with the Lord, not like we see happening with the pastimes in Dwarka or places like that. So he made this arrangement where Jai and Vijay disrespected Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, so that he would be able to come down here and fight with them. So he did. He came down twice. He came down first time as Hiranyaksha, and he fought with. He came down as Varaha and fought with Hiranyaksha, and then the second time he came down as Nrsimha and fought with Hiranyakashipu, who were actually Jai and Vijay, at least in the incarnation that's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. Yeah? And so then he was fighting with them for quite some time, and as I mentioned, the Devatas, because of their mixed nature of their devotion, they're not pure unalloyed devotees. Because of the mixed nature of their devotion, they were concerned that this demon's maybe he's going to defeat Vishnu, and so at some point then Vishnu just, he got to the point, okay, I've had enough. And he just like clipped him behind the ear, just like hit him with his hand, like he'd been bashing him with a club and all this kind of stuff. There was some really heavy duty fighting. And at one point he just clipped him behind the ear, he dropped down dead. And that was the end of it. The demon was killed. So this is the basic story. But of course, as I was mentioning, there's always a reason for the Lord's appearance. He doesn't just come for no reason at all. And we're saying here he wanted to have a fight, but also there's other reasons as well. And Krishna mentions this in the Gita. He says, Yada yada hita masha glani bhavati bharata abhutanam dharma shataratmadam srijamyaham. That whenever and wherever there's a decline of religious principles and predominant rise in the religion, at that time I descend myself. And then he says, Paritraya saranam vinaschaya chadushkritam dharma sangstapanataya sambhavam yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, I myself appear millennium after millennium. So we see this is what Krishna is doing. He appears in so many different incarnations, age after age after age. Actually, in every age, Krishna appears. We see like there's the different yugas or the ages. So we have there's 4 yugas going in a cycle, just like we have summer, autumn, winter, spring, right? So they go in a cycle. So in the same way you have Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali. They go in a cycle. They just keep going in a cycle, one after the other. So in each of these ages he comes, this is called the Yuga Avatar, and when he comes as the Yuga Avatar, he establishes the Yuga Dharma. What is the religious principle for that age? So I was describing this morning, that we see in the first age, which is called Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, the golden age, he establishes the religion of meditation. This Jayato Vishnu, he meditate upon Vishnu. Then in the second age, which is Treta Yuga, Yajato Makai, he establishes the process of sacrifice or performing yajna. And then in the third age, Dwapara, usually it's the other way around. Usually it goes Satya, Dwapara, Treta, Satya, Dwapara, Treta, and then Kali. But in this particular millennium, when Krishna comes, because of an overlapping of the millenniums, they're reversed. Prabhupada describes that in a purport, how they're reversed. So it goes Satya, Treta, Dwapara, because Dwapara means a second. And in Dwapara Yuga, the process is deity worship. And us lucky souls in Kali Yuga, in Kali Yuga there are many kind of, negativities, if you like. It's a very difficult age. But we do have, what's that? Asti heko mahan guna. There's one great quality in this age. And it says mahan guna. It's a very, very great quality. Kirtanadeva Krishna Sha Mukta Sangha Paramajit. Simply by chanting the holy name of Krishna, you can become liberated. So this is the great fortune of this age. In all other respects, it's an unfortunate age. Okay, you might think, I've got a nice car, I've got a nice house, I've got a nice phone, all this type of stuff, but it's a very unfortunate age. Religiosity is very difficult in this age. To pursue Dharma in this age is very difficult. I mean, you just look at, the laws the government passes, they're so anti-dharma. They practically suppress religions. They don't want people to take up religion. Why? Because they're not productive. They don't add anything to society, at least in their mind. I mean, and a really good example of that is if you look at the start of the last few years during this pandemic, right, when they had lockdowns, right? And all the essential industries were staying open. Okay, that's people have got to eat, people have got to do these things. But look at some of the essential things, the so-called essential things they kept open. Bottle shops. What's essential about a bottle shop? People going out and getting intoxicated and breaking religious principles. And they closed all places of worship. It would seem to me that in a time of calamity, the places of worship are the most essential. But they closed them down. And also when they started to let them open, what they say? You're not allowed to sing. You're not allowed to practice the Yuga Dharma. So, they just have no idea. They have no idea about what religious practice is or what the religious process is for this age. They've got no idea about religion. They have a very, kind of like, modern concept of religion, that it's, whatever it is. But they don't actually understand what religion is and what it's about and what it's for, and how to practice it, and how essential it is, because actually the duty of the government is to ensure that all living entities, all citizens, and not just human citizens, are practicing their dharma, and that all citizens are being protected by the government. But they're not doing this, because they don't know. Na te vidu svatagatim hi Vishnu, it says in the Bhagavatam. They do not know that the goal of life is to serve Vishnu. They've got no idea. They're thinking the goal of life is dharma, it's not dharma, sorry, karma, artha, and that's it. That's all they're thinking, is enjoyment and economic development. And especially, like if you listen to any, just like I saw yesterday, there was some voting thing going on across the road at the school here. And if you listen to what they present, usually the common line they'll say is like, would you trust the economy to this party? Yeah? It's always about the economy. Because why? Because if you have money, you can enjoy your senses. So their whole campaign is based on sense gratification. And whichever person you think is going to satisfy your senses the most, you vote for them. But the fact of it is, they'll promise you everything and deliver nothing. That's always the way it happens. So, the point being is that in this age, there are so many bad qualities that the people, the leaders do not know what it means to lead, and they become leaders by popular vote. And if you look at this system, the people who are voting don't know what a leader should be. They've all got different ideas. You ask 10 people what a leader should be, you'll get 11 answers. And so they've all got different ideas. And when the leaders get in power, they've got a different idea about what it means to lead. But actually we see traditionally, especially in the Vedic age, the leaders were trained to lead the country. They're actually trained what it meant to be a leader. Where's the school for training a prime minister or a president or a king? It just doesn't exist. It's just someone who's very good at talking or very good at campaigning or whatever it is, however they do it, they're good at it. They get the votes, and therefore they become the leader. So in this Kali age, there is no qualified persons, basically, especially the leaders. There's no qualified leaders. But as the Bhagavatam points out, there is one great quality in this age, and this is this chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So simply by taking to the chanting of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, we can overcome all the difficulties of this age. It doesn't mean that, the Prime Minister is going to become a good guy or something like that if we're chanting Hare Krishna. It just means these things won't bother us anymore. And this is the point. This age is a particularly unique age because the religious process is so easy in this age. Whereas if you go back to the first age, the Golden Age, people were very religious. They were very pious. There was not many impious activities happening. There's certainly no slaughterhouses or anything like that going on. Bottle shops, intoxication, whatever. None of that was happening. But the process for that age, because people were very qualified, the process was much more difficult. You had to sit down and meditate on Vishnu for thousands of years. Who could do that now? Valmiki Muni, I think Valmiki Muni sat down and meditated for 30,000 years, I think. It's quite a while to be sitting down meditating. Of course, he lived for 100,000 years, but still, he sat down and meditated for 30. It'd be the equivalent of us sitting down and chanting, meditating for 30 years straight. It's just not going to happen. And then the second age in Treta Yuga, Yajatomakai, very, very elaborate system of yagya, and everything was made of, all the utensils made of gold. And they used to do yagas, just like we see at the start of Kali Yuga, how the sages of Naimisharanya and Shonaka, who was the head, and Sutta Goswami, they had sat down there with the intention of performing a 1,000-year sacrifice for the welfare of the planet. So they had this idea they were going to do the sacrifice for 1,000 years. Can you imagine doing a fire yaga for 1,000 years? And my back would get really sore after the first few months. So in this age, these things just aren't practical. It's just a very inauspicious age. So the point is that in this age, we're very blessed as we have this simple process of chanting Hare Krishna, and this will deliver us very, very rapidly. So it's a very easy age. And I just wanted to conclude. I'm not really sure what time. I was just told what time to start, not what time to finish. So we see that in this chapter of the Bhagavatam I was quoting from before, the third chapter of the first canto. And as I mentioned, it lists 22 different incarnations of the Lord. But at the end, there's a very interesting statement where it says, Ete changsakala pungsang krishnastu bhagavan swayam indrari vyakalam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. That all of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets. It doesn't say necessarily this planet, on planets. Whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheists, the Lord incarnates to protect the theists. So the main takeaway from this verse, at least in my mind, is that ultimately all these incarnations are just expansions of Krishna. They're either plenary portions or portions of plenary portions of Krishna. But ultimately, Krishna is the supreme original personality of Godhead. And all other forms, Varaha, Koma, Nrsimha, they're expansions of Krishna. So Krishna is the original supreme personality of Godhead. And this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the most effective, sublime, and easiest way to worship Krishna. And it's the way that pleases him the most. And especially we understand, because coming up tomorrow is Nityananda Trayodasi, and in about 4 or 5 weeks' time is Gaur Purnim. So these two forms of the Lord. So there's a nice verse by Narottam Das Thakur. He explains this as Vrajendra Nandana se Vrajendra Nandana ye Sachi Sutta Hoila se Balarama Hoilo Nitai. That the son of Vrajendra Nandana. Who's the son of Vrajendra Nandana? Who's Vrajendra Nandana? Oh, who's Vrajendra, I should say? The king of Braja. Who's the king of Braja? Huh? Nanda Maharaj. And so who? Nandana means son. So who's his son? Krishna. So it says, Vrajendra Nandana se aye Sachi Sutta Holo se. So who's Sachi Sutta? Gauranga Mahaprabhu, the son of Sachi. Yeah? And then it says Balaram Hoilo Nitai. So then Balaram, he's come down, he's appeared as Nityananda. So we see that these two particular incarnations of Krishna and Balaram, they've appeared in this age at this time to propagate the most merciful Yuga Dharma of the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And as I was quoting that verse before, it says Asti hi eko mahan gunan kirtana Devi Krishna shaya mukta sangha parambaja. That in this age, it says that this age is a very difficult age. It's like a vast ocean of difficulties. This is described in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. But how's the verse go? I can't remember the verse. But anyway, basically talking about how this age of Kali is like a vast ocean of difficulties. But there's this one great quality of chanting Hare Krishna, and if we take shelter of this quality, if we chant Hare Krishna, mukta sangha, so you become liberated from all this. Sangha can mean association, it can also mean connections. So you become mukta, you become liberated from all these bad connections in this material life. Parambrajet, and you go to the supreme destination. Or vrajet can also mean braja. So you'll achieve braja, you'll achieve Krishna's abode, simply by taking very seriously to this chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Okay, so that's about all I have to say. Any questions at all? Comments? No? Satisfied? We're all going to take enthusiastically the chanting of the holy names. Yeah. Sorry?
Since tomorrow is such a special day, how can we make the most of it?
There's a really interesting song. What's the name of the song? Nitai Pada Kamala. Yeah? And this song basically starts off, says, Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushi Chala Jai Chayai Jagata Jurai. So it's basically saying that the Nitai Pada Kamala means the lotus feet of Nityananda. Kamala means like lotus, Pada means feet. Koti Chandra, you know what Koti means? Millions. Chandra means moon. So the lotus feet of Nityananda are like millions of moons. Shushitala, like they have this soothing effect. And by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, then one, it's just like, Prabhupada gives an analogy, just like, sometimes during the summer it gets quite hot, yeah? And just say, for instance, you're working out in the sun, like a bricky's labourer or something like that, or a builder's labourer, working out in the sun all day long. And you feel quite depleted by the end of the day. But if you just go sit outside in the moonshine at night, it's very cooling, it's very soothing, you feel peaceful, even after a hard day. So just by taking shelter of a personality such as Nityananda, then we achieve peace in this material world. Because we see, like, I was driven out to Glenfield on Friday night, and I live in northern New South Wales in a small country town, right? And being in Sydney, I saw more cars driving from here to Glenfield than I saw in a whole year in Murwillumbah, And you can see that people are really agitated just by the way they're driving. No peace in this world. They're really disturbed people. And, they're looking for peace. How do they look for peace? They go home, they put the television on, they're looking for peace. You're not going to find any peace on the television. What happens? You turn the news on and you find out about all these horrible things that are happening in the world. Where's the peace in that? Or they go and they have an argument with their partner. They get home, because the partner wants to watch this and you want to watch that. And it's like, where's the peace in that? They get on social media and they're being bombarded with all this stuff on social media. Or they're taking intoxication. Where do they find peace? There is no peace in this material world. It's not a place of peace. But if we want to find peace, we need to take shelter of someone like Nityananda, because Nityananda, he's a very unique character. Nityananda is actually the Adi Guru, the original spiritual master, because he is actually he's Shankarshan. He expands as Shankarshan, Mahashankarshan. Mahashankarshan is the shelter of all the jivas. So all the jivas, all the living entities, they take shelter under the lotus feet of Nityananda. So, different things, it depends on what your situation is. You can sing prayers about Nityananda. You can come and do service at the temple for Nityananda. You do service at home. If you don't have the capacity to do that, you just chant the holy name, and while you're chanting, you can pray to Nityananda. Yeah? Because he's also manifesting the holy name as Rama. Yeah? There's many things you can do through service, through prayers. You can pray to be able to dedicate your life to him. You can pray to be able to take shelter of him. There's many ways you can, just try to connect. Try to surrender yourself to the service of the Lord. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Maraji. Nitai Pada Kamala. Yeah. It's in the songbook. It's a song by Narottam Das Thakur. It's a very, very nice song. A very nice song. And it's just talking about his merciful nature. And, there's a songbook there. But it just talks about his merciful nature and how, by the living entities taking shelter of Nityananda, they'll achieve peace. But tomorrow night, I'll probably sing the song and just talk a bit on the song, because I think it's 7 or 8 verses, something like that, but it's very, very beautiful. No, 4 verses, that's right, it's 4 verses. And very, very beautiful. And Prabhupada, several times he gave class about Nityananda, and he basically just, discussed the song. Yeah? Okay, so it's wonderful to see you all again, although it is a bit unusual looking at people with masks on. Up in Murwillumbah, they don't do that. It's like, I think we've had 2 cases in the whole area of COVID, so no one's really overly bothered about it. Not like, you guys have really been through it down here. So anyhow, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Varahadeva ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.